Well, buckle your seatbelts. That's all I can say is one of my surrogate sons is in the studio with me today. Paul Coughlin is here, and he heads up Protectors, and we talk about bullying. And how you doing, bud?
I'm doing good.
Good to see you.
I'm doing good. Nice to see you as well.
Yeah, good to be seen, as they say.
You don't age, pal. You know that?
Is that it?
No.
Oh, well.
You do not.
I should tell my
Do you
body
drink
that.
formaldehyde or something every morning?
Well, yeah, I do. I port my coffee. It's
Preserve
right there.
yourself.
Anyway, bullying. Boy, you got some new products out?
We do, Perry. You know, as you know, we started out as a faith-based only organization, only because no one else was tackling bullying from a faith-based perspective, at least that we were aware of.
Yeah.
And as far as we know, we're still the only organization in the U.S. that is doing that. And then within about 3 months, we had more requests to speak in public schools than private schools. And so we thought, well, okay, we'll diversify. So we started out with a faith-based program. We went to a values-based public school program, which is this right here. This is the teacher's guide.
Let me hold that up to the camera. I think you see it there. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, that's broken down. That's the teacher's guide for grades 9 through 12, and
wow.
we have it for other grades as well. But then we kept getting these requests from faith-based organizations that weren't schools, summer camps, Sunday school, youth group, Awana. They wanted to deal with bullying, but they didn't really want such a thick curriculum. So this month we're coming out with a DVD plus a curriculum called the Life's a Movie, What's Your Role? Hero in You DVD. Oh. And this is from the faith-based perspective. It's from a talk I gave in just outside Nashville about 2 years ago. And so we've cut it up and created a program that pretty much anyone could bring a group of kids through. Technically, wherever 10 or more kids gather, there's going to be bullying.
Wow.
And so it's a new product.
All right. Protectors and bullying. Well, Paul, the whole subject of bullying seems to be really exposed out there. I guess it comes up, produces a couple of questions. Is bullying on the rise, or is it just getting more exposure?
Well, that's a great question. You know, one of the frustrating things about this work that we do, the freedom from bullying movement as a whole, not just in the U.S., but across the world,
right.
It's hard to get your hands on really hard data. And that's usually the case, Perry, with behaviors that are highly abusive. This is really intentional abuse is what bullying really falls under that category. So whenever you have people who are being abused, we know that they usually don't talk. So like for every one who says, yes, I'm being abused, there might be 10 who are being abused too, but they just don't want to speak. And you get this across the board, particularly like with sexual crime, for example. To answer that question, it is probably on the increase, and it's being reported more. And particularly for someone of my generation and your generation, we never even dealt with what's called cyberbullying. Right. There is one statistic that says that 160,000 kids stay home from school each day due to bullying. We've looked into that statistic and found it was created in the middle 90s, before cyberbullying even existed. Wow. So it's safe to say that it is the #1 form of child abuse in the United States right now, surpassing all of the forms of child abuse. Yet it's the only form of abuse, Perry, that we tell children to just ignore.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. You know, has the media attention helped?
I do think it has helped.
Because, I mean, you got the networks talking about it. You're all over talking about it. I'm seeing more and more exposure of it at all levels. You kind of wonder, wow, A, it's a problem, and B, it's really now getting talked about. Is that affecting bullying at all?
Yeah, I think it has, Perry, mostly helped to get this on people's radar. Today's generation, at least, is far more aware of what bullying really is than our generation. We always thought it was about conflict and misunderstanding, miscommunication. In fact, most adults still think it's those things, when in reality, it's intentional abuse. It's highly predatory. So today's generation probably more likely to understand that. This is where the media probably hasn't helped, is when some of them don't understand what bullying is. So, for example, you'll hear a newscaster say that a such and such team bullied the other team. No, sports teams, I can say as a coach, you don't bully other teams. You beat them through aggression, usually, and will, and hopefully ability. Being aggressive, being tough, being fierce, that's not bullying. So the media doesn't get it right sometimes, and so unfortunately, what happens is we get this cauldron called bullying, and we throw into this cauldron all behavior that we just don't like. If it makes me uncomfortable, it's bullying. Yeah. And that's really unfortunate because, Perry, the kids who are being bullied suffer when particularly adults don't get it right. We need clarity in the theater of bullying so we can get to real solutions to bullying.
All right. Let me jump ahead and come back. The long-term effect of bullying is what?
It's worse than we thought. A study out of London, February of this year, has confirmed other studies as well. It has told us the result that a child who undergoes serial bullying, not someone who just gets bullied every once in a while, you know, a sustained attack, that it can literally change a person's DNA, especially the gene that regulates moods. Isn't that something? Oh, it's awful. Girls in particular, if when they become the target of serial bullying, will suffer identically what people returning from war suffer as well. Whoa. And even especially in the workplace, not just as children, but as adults. It is remarkable what it does to a person. There was a study out of the Wesley Society in Australia followed serial targets, wanted to find out what kind of adults they became. Because we say things like, well, that which doesn't kill us makes us stronger, right? We think we're quoting scripture. That's Friedrich Nietzsche, who was an enemy of the faith. Died insane in a ditch in Austria sometime. I don't forget the year. So but we think it makes us stronger. Saying that bullying makes you stronger is like saying that sexual assault makes people stronger. Well, it didn't kill you, so it's going to make you stronger. It simply isn't true. Well, they wanted to find out what kind of adults these kids became. 7 out of 10 had difficulty forming lasting adult relationships, particularly difficulty with trust, anger management, but resentment was the #1 problem. And for people who are familiar with AA and related groups, resentment is the #1 negative emotion tethering people to drug and alcohol abuse.
Are there different types of bullying?
Sure, yeah. Usually when it's if we're going to talk about adolescent bullying, you're going to, at the younger age, you're going to get a good amount of physical bullying. After a while, they figure out they can't quite get away with that, so they'll move to verbal bullying. Most bullying is verbal. Most of it's relational. Most of it is social. It's psychological. And unfortunately, it's the worst kind. A child would probably be better off being physically assaulted over time than psychologically assaulted over time.
So is it more peer-to-peer issue, or is it parent-to-child issue?
Well, you do have parent-to-child issues as well in regard to bullying. Bullying being the superior use of power with the intention to harm another person over a period of time, and where the bully actually enjoys what they're doing. Why do they do it? Many find pleasure in another person's pain.
Putting them down.
Yeah, and I just gave you the definition of sadism.
By putting someone down, is the intent to build yourself up?
To some degree, for kids, it can be a way of climbing up the social ladder and maintaining social status. So not just going up, but maintaining what you have.
All right, Paul Coughlin's with us today. He heads up the Protectors, and we're talking about bullying. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. All right, we're back with Paul Coughlin. Paul heads up Protectors, and it's a faith-based as well as a value-based program to help students and Sunday school teachers as well as education teachers to deal with the whole subject of bullying. If you want to learn more about it, go to protectors.org, protectors.org, and you can check it all out. And you've been all over the place. You've been on the 700 Club. You've been speaking and doing all this, which just lets me to know that you've obviously touched a real nerve by it. And I think, you know, the good thing about this, I don't know if we're aware of bullying and how it affects people just recently, more kids, you see it in the news once in a while, they actually commit suicide.
Yeah,
and the age of those kids committing suicide, you go, whoa, whoa.
As young as 8, in England, we had a 6-year-old girl recently. Yeah, the term for that is bullycide, and we have to be very careful with that word. In many cases, these children who take their lives, we will say it was due to bullying. You have to be careful there. Bullying can certainly be a contributing factor in many of these cases, but also in some of these cases there may also, I don't mean to blame the victim here in any way, shape, or form, but there could be other extenuating circumstances, particularly
each one's different.
Depression and things like that. But
right.
Perry, let's just say, it's safe to say that if a child is undergoing a systematic attack, where they're being humiliated and isolated on a regular basis, when they're being told to kill themselves by their peers, which is what happened in Japan a number of years ago, and Japan now is in the throes of sweeping legislation, where if you do to a child what you, if a child does to another child what an adult would do to another adult in the workplace, that adult will be put into jail. They'll certainly lose their job. More and more children are actually going to be prosecuted under adult laws now in Japan because of a sweeping problem there among the youth, particularly elementary school kids. So these poor kids are taking their lives, Perry, and they just need to talk to their parents. They need to open up. Usually bullying fills a kid with false shame, false recrimination. Bullies lie to their targets on a regular basis. No one likes you. You're stupid. Even when they're not stupid, you're ugly even when they're pretty. And but unfortunately, these kids, Perry, they just don't have the psychological wherewithal to be able to see through those lies, and it begins to just worm through them. Boys will often explode and attack other people. 85% of school shootings have bullying as their prime motive.
Oh, yeah,
and every one of them male in America. And girls tend to implode. They tend to attack themselves. So parents, take it seriously. Take it very seriously.
How does someone learn to bully? I mean, I'm a born bullier. I mean, what's the deal here?
Perry, there can be some studies that help to support that statement. As young as 18 months, bullying behavior can be seen in some kids relative to others. The study on that had come out this year. What makes a bully? Now, one of the biggest questions that we have at the Protectors, usually a coercive parenting style, though not always. Most kids who bully have a parent who bullies, a parent who is derogatory toward other people, a parent who is disdainful or contemptuous toward another person. Bullying it is primarily not rooted in anger. Bullying is primarily rooted in contempt. And contempt is both the language and behavior of superiority. I believe I am more important and more valuable than other people. Therefore, bullies think, other people deserve this awful treatment. Now, that's what some of the worst dictators of all throughout history have believed. You look at the atrocities that have taken place on a global level. Well, similar atrocities, frankly, take place in these interpersonal relationships as well. So, do you want to know where a kid learns how to bully? Usually a parent who just on a regular basis just puts other people down because that parent is arrogant and that parent is, again, contemptuous of other people.
Is that a form of jealousy?
Well, it's interesting. Who was it? The great psychologist Solomon thought that jealousy had to do with people. Resentment and jealousy, he felt, had to do with people who you thought were superior to you. Flat out anger tends to be with people who you believe are on the same level. And then contempt is usually reserved for people that you believe are lower than you. So jealousy probably is for people who you think are higher up the social ladder. And I just want to warn our audience, some of the most contemptuous people I have met have great church attendance. So just because these people go to church on a regular basis means nothing. In many cases, they are hiding from God in the front row.
Boy, those are big statements. Now, before we run out of time, one of the main things we want to convey here, if you know someone that's being bullied, or and you want to step in, and that is the key, stepping in, isn't it?
It is the key, Perry. We tend to look to teachers. We say, you know, this is a school problem. It is not a school problem. The #1 line of defense, Perry, is parenting. Parents need to stop raising children who are contemptuous toward other kids. Parents need to stop raising kids who are passive bystanders, frankly sinful bystanders, and become heroic alongside standers. We need to expect our children to intervene when they see it. And studies are amazing. When only one person intervenes, that incident of bullying can end almost 60% of the time within 6 to 8 seconds. And when you get 2 people intervening, which is what the protectors trains, 2 people to intervene, that can go up to 80–90% of the bully's not looking for a fight, Perry. The bully is looking to overwhelm. And so they're highly selective of who they go after. They're not
usually after the weak, right?
They do. Usually they go after non-assertive people,
right.
Which doesn't necessarily make them weak, but they're perceived to be as weak.
Right.
They're not expecting intervention. When 2 people walk up and they just say, leave him alone, leave her alone, they don't know what to do with that. That's a game changer, Perry. That's a change-up pitch, as in the world of baseball. So, yeah, we need to expect our children to intervene, and when they do, amazing how they can change the culture of a school. Perry, teachers don't define the culture of a school. The students, when the teacher turns their back, that is the culture of the school.
Yeah.
What happens when the teacher turns their back?
Right.
And the teacher doesn't necessarily define that. The students define that, and the parents help define the students.
Okay, can this be misdiagnosed?
Oh yeah, it's misdiagnosed all the time, Perry. I had this one lady, oh, heaven help me. This one lady, she was up in arms about how her child was being bullied. And I said, well, ma'am, tell me what's going on. And she said a boy, her son was wearing a white shirt in class, and this boy took a green permanent marker and marked his shoulder as he walked by. Now, it was intentional. It wasn't an accident. And I said, okay, ma'am, what else happened? And she said, no, that's it. I mean, she wanted that other boy expelled from school. And I said, ma'am, we get pleas for help at the protectors from parents whose children are being sexually assaulted on a regular basis, and they're often physically or mentally challenged kids. And they're afraid to talk. This is what we're dealing with. I said, your son wasn't bullied. That was just an unfortunate incident, and the kid should make up for what he did to your child, but that's not bullying. Yeah, we believe, for example, that if our daughter, usually it's the case where if a daughter is not invited to, like, say, a sleepover or a party, we will say, well, that's bullying because they didn't include her.
Oh.
That would only be bullying if the kids, if the kids at the sleepover said, let's invite everyone but her because she's horrible, because we don't like her. That, if it were intentional isolation, that would be bullying. But just because a kid doesn't make a team, or just because a child's not invited to a party, that doesn't make it bullying.
So bullying has a serial aspect to it.
Usually it does. And schools will tell you that they want to know about it right away. Whether or not, the devil's always in the details. So whether or not you want to run to the school right away with one example, I guess if it's really intense and really awful, that's probably a good idea. But usually bullying shows itself over a pattern of time. And this is important because that's where the harm is. To be picked on every once in a while, isn't right. It hurts, but it doesn't necessarily harm us from a psychological perspective. The harm is this ongoing campaign of cruelty that actually gets other kids to go along with it. Kids, seemingly good kids, or even good Christian kids, supposedly, will do awful things. The longer this kid is bullied, it's called the bullying mentality. Kids who would normally never join in attacking that children, studies show most of the time, or at least many times, will join in and say awful things to that kid.
Wow. Can overparenting be a form of bullying?
Overparenting can fall into the category of coercive parenting.
Oh,
but what
so
we normally
is different than
yeah. But it's interesting, Perry. It's a great question because overparent actually plays a very different role, but it's very damaging. Overparenting can actually lead to creating very non-assertive kids. A overparented kid just doesn't really think they need to exert their will very much. Other people usually take care of everything for them. So why should I exert my will? Everything's going to be taken care of. Well, you take this overparented kid, and Perry, I mean, we're working with the church in Washington State. It's one of 4 churches that we have partnerships with, and the pastor's wife works with kindergartners. And she said, yeah, when we were talking about overparenting, she said, yes, we will have mothers come in and cut their child's food for them at lunchtime.
Really?
That's overparenting.
That's overparenting.
It makes a passive kid who's a target of bullying.
Wow. Well, it's called protectors.org as the website if you want to learn more about this and check out the resources. If you suspect it, I think Paul's a guy that you may want to get a hold of to come maybe do a seminar in your church or maybe in your organization and learn more about this. It's a huge thing, and kids are being affected by it, and we can stop it.
Yes, we can.
We can stop it. Well, you're doing a great job, and he not only is a great dad, he's a good coach, and I think you probably learned a lot between coaching and parenting, didn't you? You're going to write another book on that?
Parenting Without a Manual, which was your idea over 10 years ago. Great idea.
Yeah. All right, we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Okay.